Hi there, Cosmic Family. My name is Jaliel in this incarnation, and I am here to talk about Saturn in Aries of this first entrance that we are going to experiment in 2025, of the whole transit actually. I'm going to talk about it in general. So Saturn is going to enter in this sign on May 25th of 2025 until September 1st of this same year. Then it returns to Pisces, and the definite entrance it is going to occur in February 14th of 2026 until April of 2028. So, well, the cardinal signs are the ones, the people that have celestial bodies, especially in the first 3 degrees, because in this first instance, Saturn is going to go through until the degree 1 with 56 minutes only. So if you have celestial bodies in the first 3 or 4 degrees, the cardinal signs, you are going to feel it in a tense way. I'm talking about Libra, Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn. Perhaps you are going to experiment certain challenges regarding the energy of Saturn. I'm going to develop in a minute. Fire signs like Leo or Sagittarius are going to receive this in trines. So perhaps you are facing the maturity of certain fruits, the recognition of an effort that you have sustained in time, depending on what you have seeded. And air signs, these are the ones that are receiving major aspects. Gemini and Aquarius are going to experiment this more like opportunities that they are going to require initiative, energy, and responsibility, because that is Saturn, but they are going to materialize results along the way. So all of us in the house in which we have as areas, we are going to experiment learnings with Saturn. This is also part of the every transit with this planet. So let's go. Let's make a review of the function of Saturn that I have talked many times before. This is the planet of boundaries, of limits. This is the one that regulates the form. Through the transits, we are seeing how we are regulating the form that we give a structure to our reality, to our societies. Saturn rules the laws, what we consider figures of authority in our society. Contacts with Saturn are always calling us to new levels of maturity, to develop a mastery in the area in which it is transiting. It is a planet that shows us that the phases of contraction are both necessary as much as the expansion that are represented by Jupiter, and that I'm going to talk in short because Jupiter also changes sign. So the opportunities of growth of Saturn, they occur many times through challenges, obstacles, experiences that are restrictive, but they are pushing us to find new resources. So where Saturn is transiting, we are called to assume responsibilities, to face the consequences of what we need to correct also, and to learn. Also, I am mixing the languages. Also, it is a moment to assume decisions, to take decisions thinking in what we want to build in the long term, and to learn to incorporate discipline, understood as the choice, the election of what we know that is building. When we sustain those kind of choices in time to materialize, to bear the fruits. Discipline, nothing has to do with punishment towards oneself or other people. In fact, these are the authoritarian and this excessive rigidness. These are the shadows of Saturn, and this is going to be very important to understand because Saturn transiting through Aries, we could confuse easily, and it is something that has been part of our society, healthy boundaries with violence. In fact, it is part of the education of a lot of people. So transits of Saturn are also facing us with fears. This is something shared like a little bit with Pluto, but they have a difference, of course, because Pluto, it is more linked with unconscious fears, and they are not only responding to our personal experiences, also the collective ones, the traumatic and painful experiences of the collective, the hidden situations that created these patterns. And then in the activations with Pluto, we need to face them and to transform them. With Saturn, they have to do with, the individual experiences, but the fears are more linked with not feeling capable, not feeling enough. They emerge from this excessive self-exigency, and many times that exigency could be so big that take the form of not taking the responsibility, because it is very common that people that are procrastinating their own important projects, they are doing that because deep down they have this profound fear to fail, to not be enough to approach that thing. So because of all these things, the traditional astrology, well, they called set Saturn as a malefic planet. I don't believe so. It is true, to be honest, that the tense aspects with Saturn, squares, oppositions, and conjunctions too, could apply. It is going to depend on how we are dealing with them, because people that have Saturn in Aries, they are going to experience their Saturn return, and it could be a moment, of great growth. But well, many times our perception could turn more pessimistic. We could see things through, the filter of scarcity. Certain situations could present that are causing frustration, or that they are making us feel very limited or restricted. But these experiences, this is the important thing, are genuinely offering us a learning, and once we transit them, we can feel those solid bases, how how we have growth, sorry, in the whole process. And probably we left behind things that weren't helping with that construction of certain goals, neither with our evolutionary maturity, because Saturn, it is very linked with that, the personal maturity. So sorry for my English today, and every day I have my challenges with this language. So, well, the traditional astrology also consider that Saturn in Aries is in detriment, in full, because, well, it is exalted in Libra, but the Aryan energy, it is associated to the I, the identity, our individual desires, and in other mundane areas, this is more linked with, for example, sports. It could be that we are changing our sport structure in society, everything that has to do with conducting. It is conducting the word. Wait a minute, sorry. I have to do this because I've done it before. Yeah, conduction or driving. Whatever thing, a project, or even a car. This is linked with Aries, and also military forces. That I think particularly that they are responding to this old paradigm, because that function is operating, feeding the collective imbalance of wanting to solve things through violence. So even though Aries is the initiator, but that initial spark is not enough. Is not enough to sustain things in time. It could lose very quick the motivation, and sustaining in time is something that Saturn requires. So also Aries is associated to speed, velocity, speed of movement, and Saturn is slow. In fact, many times our perception during transits with Saturn could make us perceive, reality in a very slow way. And well, Aryan energy could have the tendency to develop impatience. These kind of things are making, the energy of Saturn not very compatible with Aries. But this is something that I mentioned many times before. planetary dignities, yeah, they could be something, but I think that mainly every aspect, every transit, it is very linked with what we are doing with the available energy. This is not about the planet, it is about the consciousness and the will of growing that we are cultivating. There are planets that could be transiting or that you have in your natal chart that are in their domicile or exalted, and even though they are not expressed in their best versions, because there are learnings and things that we need to acquire. So Aries opens paths and learns of the processes through through the fallings, through the I don't know the expression right now, but it is very linked with this. So Saturn is inviting us to incarnate this version of this energy that is much more mature and responsible, and it is going to show these tangible consequences of impulsive actions. For example, if a person has very rooted in its behavior, in his or her behavior, reacting in non-assertive ways, the passage through of Saturn through here could face that person with a consequence that is going to push that person to learn to self-regulate. Perhaps it's a conflict that is ascending, a circumstance that it faced with a very, very tangible boundary. So also the other polarity could be linked with resistances to open the new paths. If there are people with those kind of resistances to take decisions of initiating in the directions that respond to the coherence of what genuinely that person desires, because perhaps there are fears of not being capable of taking certain risks. Saturn also is going to generate the limits, in life that push us to take those kind of decisions, important decisions. Or everything is going to depend on how we are incarnating the Aryan energy, because, and of course, the house where it is transiting, because these examples I am mentioning this because Saturn, it is not a planet of risks. It is more linked with transiting the processes of giving a structure step by step in the matter. But if there are people that have been sustained very rigid constructions and obsolete ones, this transit is going to push them to stop putting the energy there and depositing that in other spaces, even if that feels like a risk. And Aries is one of the most willing signs to take risks, because I don't know if I am talking right now. So because Aries is the primary fire in Leo, a fire is accumulated so we can irradiate it. In Sagittarius, there is a vision, there is an expansive ideal that directs that fire. In Aries is the primary one. So the word risk, in Spanish at least, it is very linked with what the providence is developing, that what cuts or divides too. These are expressions in the etymology of risk. So of course, this is about a step that leads us from an instance to another, very different. But it is the contact with the coherence of the soul that we have learned in a great part in Pisces. This was linked with the transit, of Saturn in Pisces. I am going to do a summary later when we have the comeback of Saturn to this sign. So this is what marks what we are assuming when we are assuming a decision that perhaps we don't have the control on the results, but we understand that it's necessary and that we need to respond to that inner calling. But other thing very, very different is to go into a direction, going in a direction without considering the impact of our decisions nor the consequences. They are very, very different aspects. So other quality that we could experiment with Saturn in Aries, it has to do with cultivating a healthy independence. healthy independence, it is not thinking that we don't need anyone. It is going to show us the experiences in which we need to assume the leadership of our path and not depending on others, because we need to learn that way, taking our own decisions and doing things alone for the first time. In fact, Saturn going through here consolidate experiences that we are doing for the first time, both in the individual and collective level. But in its other aspect, in its other polarity, this could be linked with receiving lessons of actions that could be like selfish or egoistical. These are the shadow. This is the shadow of Aries. Taking action from desires of the ego without considering how that is affecting other people through those experiences. And in general, this is a need of maturing our desires and the actions that we are going to take to materialize them. So again, all depends on how we are incarnating our masculine energy. If it is in an excess, we will have to limit it, and if it's not expressed, we will have to develop. And well, aggressiveness is the force that impulses us to move forward. This transit is also linked with how we are connecting with anger. If we are repressing anger to explode later, or if we are connecting with anger in a responsible way, and then we can evaluate, from which places we are taking decisions. We give us a space to regulate and to take decisions. Anger is an emotion very necessary because it speaks to us of the things that we are denying. Perhaps we are denying an inner voice. It shows us when someone is crossing a boundary, perhaps in a violent way too, or even when we are not putting boundaries to certain kind of thoughts, when we are feeding perceptions that are not mature of reality. But aggressiveness is quite necessary, because through aggressiveness I can say no to something. I can say I am not going to tolerate this in a certain situation with a in a concrete way, because if we don't put those boundaries, we are going to accumulate anger inside, and that thing that emotion has to be expressed in some way. And this is something that happens a lot these days, the incoherencies and the anger that is not well managed in the society, in the people. This is projected in situations that aren't corresponding. We could see this great level of violence that is exacerbated because of the lack of identity, the I don't know the word I am looking for, this word again, sorry. This is exacerbated because of the anonymity, well, of the identities in social media. Because no one knows who we are, we can say whatever thing we think. So this I am commenting because Saturn is going to create a sextile with Pluto and Aquarius that is going to be perfected in 2026. And beyond this, Saturn it is not going to be alone all the 2025 and practically the whole 2026. It is going to be in conjunction with Neptune. Therefore, everything that we are constructing, opening, and deciding is impulsed by the force of our spiritual connection, which is Neptune. That in its shadows, I talked about this in the video of Neptune. This could be the idealizations, the fanatisms, the expectations, and the desire of imposing ideologies and dogmas in a distortion of what truly a spiritual connection is. This could be also linked with trying to impose authority through physical or verbal violence. Violence has many expressions. So I am going to approach this later from the perspective of Jupiter in Cancer, which is a very nice transit, but yeah, it could express its shadows. Again, I am not relying on these planetary dignities. I think it is very important to always, create a balance and being able to see the shadows and the lights of everything. So The last thing that I wanted to mention regarding the collective things that we could experiment, that we are going to deepen, of course, in the next years, if I am able to do that, it is that in 1938, that year we had a transit. I wasn't, alive, I think, in this world, or no, at least not in this incarnation. But well, at that moment, the transit of Saturn in Aries represented a consolidation of figures of authority that represented authoritarian regimes, so in many countries. And also that in that year it was consolidating the Second World War. Of course, we had a lot of other transits that were very different accompanying that moment. But I'm mentioning this right now because we have to remember that those dictatorships, those dictators were all chosen by the people, and all of them had in common using a group, a sector, a part of society as the ones that were responsible of every imbalance of a nation, a country, or the world. And I think that this is already happening right now. And in many countries, I am not going to, point anything because that is not my mission, but I know that, in our times, the formula of a man screaming in German, it is not something that is going to fit. They are taking other kind of representations. But in this spiral that I know that I am seeing that we are experimenting right now in the collective, this is happening to do a transcendence. And we have this great advantage, and it is the opening of the enormous spiritual growth that awakened in a lot of people years ago. So this capacity that we have of retiring the power to those kind of structures is an individual choice. And also there are other factors playing, like that they have a function, but they can add also certain challenges. I am talking about artificial intelligences and the power that that have the people that are configuring them and driving the technology of the world. But well, this is, I think this is part of the process too. But also this is the end of the message and the reflection. We are going to see the emergence of a reference of figures that are contributing a lot with this collective transition. I mentioned Amen many times, Mario Saban. You can look for him. I think he has right now social media in English. He is an authority figure, at least in Kabbalah. He was the founder of his own school. But I personally feel much more represented by a person like him than whatever person could belong right now to the structures of the politics of every country. I am not positioning myself in ideologies, in specific ideologies, but the fact that I think that that person could be a referent in whatever thing he does, that doesn't make me in agreement with everything and all the visions that that person can express. There are few things, but there are certain visions that I don't fully agree, and it doesn't matter which things are. What I am trying to say with this is that it's very important to be able to recognize the capacity of leadership of a person, of exercising it, but that should not blind us and take us to idolatry. uh, One thing shouldn't annul the other. I mean, if I am not in fully agreement with that person, that doesn't also retire the capacity, sorry, that that person has. So this conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, I think that is going to visualize reference leaders. But well, all depends on the perception of the person that is observing. I think that many reference will continue to respond to the dualities, polarizations, fanatisms, idealizations that still inhabit our society. But also, I think that there are emerging everywhere people that are using their influence in the world in a very, very positive way, that are opening paths for the ones that are coming and helping each individual to cultivate their inner leadership. Because people that desire or that already have a position of authority with the only intention of control and power, they need people that are dependent, that people that believe that they cannot grow or improve their situation without them. Without them, society or the group through which they are directing their energy cannot move forward. But a figure of authority, a referent with this genuine connection with his or her soul, accomplishing his or her function, the purpose. They are going to desire and to act in consequence for the people, that they are putting their energy in, recognize their own strength, their own power, their responsibility they have also in their decisions, and the capacity that we all have to recalibrate our energies and developing our potential from whatever thing those people came here to do, because we don't have the same function. We came here with individual purposes. So well, this is very important. I wanted to close the message, yeah, the expression of Saturn in Aries in here. Thank you, everyone, and see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.